So my presentation is on education, learning, and research on cooperatives. And therefore, the main point I would like to communicate is that, in my opinion, research on cooperatives cannot be separated from education and learning, and that this requires a specific approach. So first, in terms of education, in the world of education and cooperatives, we have to know that it's a very rich world, and at the same time that we should differentiate cooperatives from other initiatives in the world of education. So in terms of education, we are talking here of the participation of stakeholders in terms of education and learning. And that's different from youth clubs, sports, and other informal associations. We find cooperatives in the world of education at all levels. We find them in primary schools, made by children or constituted by parents or by teachers. We find them equally at the high school level. We find them at the university level. Mondragon has a cooperative, which is a university. Equally, I will show you a couple of examples where students at the university level and postgraduate level do form cooperatives while they are studying in order to sell, for example, consultancy services, as well as housing cooperatives of students in the United States. Then we find a very rich world of training outside universities. And so what is interesting is to find this gap that we generally talk about. While this is a very rich world, we find, or we talk usually, of the lack of mainstreaming. However, cooperatives in education have had a very long history. And this is related, excuse me? And this is related to the question of knowledge. I will show you one example. In Argentina, we find already a mention of cooperatives in the national law of education at the end of the 19th century. As you know, these people got the ideas. They were mainly immigrants from Europe. So where did they get these ideas from? From Europe. However, where do we find now research, books that they talk about this world of cooperatives in education in the 19th century in Europe? It's very rare, and I don't know about them. I don't know if you know about them, but I think it shows that we have done a lot of work, or maybe our parents, our grandparents, and that has been lost. So what is knowledge in education? And then, although there is a great deal of work that has been done in Europe, and that knowledge has been passed to the Americas and other continents, with time it can be lost. So this is something that has to be regained every time. These are examples of children co-ops in schools, whereby they have a year project, or maybe they pass from year to year, different types of projects. There are differences between developing countries and developed countries, where in developing countries, usually they will tend to have projects which are more productive. However, this should not be work. This is very different from requiring children to work. This is usually can be a curricular or extracurricular activity. And in developed countries, usually they will do projects which have to do with communication. For example, in France, they have three focus: citizenship, communication, and the environment. So usually developed countries will, the children will be inclined to work more on more abstract issues. At the same time, I want to share with you something that is happening in the UK in the last few years. There are hundreds of cooperative schools that are being created right now in the UK. And this is important to know because it can come to your door as well. This is a reaction to academies. There is an initiative of privatization of education at the world level, by which we get for-profit enterprises called academies, usually coming from the US, and they open or they get control of schools in other countries, in India, in the UK, and it's coming to Europe as well, by which they lease the knowledge. The schools pay every year the rights to access and then to use one book online, and they have exams, everything is prepared. They use imaginary heroes. There is very little local knowledge or historical knowledge. This, promoted by the conservative government in the UK, has led to a very strong reaction of teachers and parents in the UK because they are very concerned about the quality of education. In Japan, we find another example, but this is from students, where students, also in Holland, they participate in cooperatives by which they sell services and they can pay their studies. At the same time, cooperatives in other sectors do participate strongly. This is an example from Italy in retailing the co-op, and they try to teach youngsters about the environment and fair trade. So what this comes to is that cooperative learning, a bit different from education, meant a very important revolution in education from the 19th century to the 20th century. Before, we used to have a very authoritarian, with punishment and vertical type of learning. Coming from France, from Switzerland, from Italy, Freinet, Pestalozzi, and others, they brought a very important revolution in the way we learn about the world, the way the children and us, we should learn of the world and the context in which we live. And this meant a very important change in terms of pedagogy and philosophical approaches, by which, as human beings, we should learn from early age about solidarity, about cooperatives, about respect to others, about self-help, and practical skills, which was very different at that time from the other approach, main approach in education. And this means as well that we are not only learning or teaching, but also we are involved with real life, involved with the community. And this has continued even today in what should be a cooperative approach. And now we see, like when we talk about co-op education, it means like students going to do training in the real world, in enterprises, in cooperatives and other organizations. So the idea is there, although it's not linked anymore to the idea of cooperatives as such. So in the case of cooperatives, this means to learn to self-organize about the economy and the enterprise within a democratic system. And this is very central to, when we have crises, when we have problems, that people later in their lives, they have learned before how to deal with problems by themselves. So I'm going to go over that. So I still think that cooperative education is very, very relevant today. And I just want to say some things about academic research on cooperatives. So I was elected, and I have started to work in a position that is called Chair of Cooperative Enterprises at the undergraduate level in Canada, in the province of Manitoba. And this is the first time in North America that we have such a chair. And what it means is that until now we have taught, myself as well, at the master level, PhD level. But this is the first time in North America that we have something at the undergraduate level. And this is a key challenge in mainstreaming, because we are getting the students to learn about this before they go into work. Because once they start working, even in cooperatives, they are under such pressure to conform that they don't have time, or they don't have the means, or even they, even if they want to do something on cooperatives, they would not be promoted because it's not considered as important as other types of enterprises. So in academic research until now, we talk of lack of mainstreaming, as well as lack of strategic research. And at the same time, we do have that, but the networks that they exist between the Americas and Europe, although they are beginning to globalize, they have a lack of recognition, of mutual recognition. And this is because some focus on these aspects as a way to solve like social services, while others, in particular in the Americas, both North and South, they want to do and focus on these aspects as a way to change society, to change the economy. So these two approaches actually are difficult to match, and therefore some people work on with some approach and the others do differently. And then usually they don't exchange, so they meet in separate networks. And at the same time, we have initiatives like this one in Canada, but it's more difficult that we can exchange between English-speaking people and those who don't, unless we have translation, but this does not happen usually in Anglo-Saxon countries. So what happens is that they integrate people from other countries that speak English, like it's my case, and many others, but it's difficult that they allow for equal exchange as equals in the use of different languages. So I think that there is a lot of research which is very important that still has to be done, and therefore this is something that we need many more people to come in and to participate. So this here you can find some examples. And in terms of the relevance of research, I have to say that this implies a different approach that has to be in line with education and learning of cooperatives. So this approach requires a very different foundation in terms of epistemology that has to be based on humanistic and democratic values. And therefore, it's bottom-up because it is, these are initiatives that come from the bottom, from the citizens and human beings from below. And that means that as researchers, we have to be to acknowledge this because the knowledge actually comes from below. So it is important to analyze the initiatives, it is important to support them, to accompany them, to be critical of them as well, but the knowledge comes from below. So this means that we have a double approach in order to build something that is meaningful, not only in terms of research, but is meaningful for the community. Otherwise, there is no point in doing cooperative research just for the sake of creating abstract knowledge. So this has to be done in cooperation with the community, with initiatives from the base, and in this way, it actually meets its name. And therefore, it's a double path to build knowledge that is both experiential and theoretical, and that is meaningful to improve and to respond to the needs of society and the community. And so this is just to remind that epistemic culture, it means like a theory of knowledge. So it is an approach to knowledge that has to develop in education, in learning, and in research as well. And in the case of the chair of the Cooperative Enterprises Program at the University of Winnipeg, I went there to develop a subject area. And this means not only working at one department, I am at the business department, but also with others. And now we are beginning to work on a research on cooperative housing on financing tools, and also with the cooperative housing community, associations and leaders, as well as with others in the urban department. And then also from the Aboriginal studies, this is the way we talk of indigenous peoples there. Also they are very interested, as well as others who are working on cooperatives in jails with women, reintegration into society, and international development and cooperation at the university. So this means to develop specialization, but that will go across, this means many different courses that can be offered across the university and hopefully with other universities as well. So I think I finished with that. Thank you.